Hello everybody, this is John. Welcome to the Mershman Seeds Ag Weather Outlook, July 8th, 2017. Well, probably as you know or have noticed from my information I sent out this week, I'm getting more and more concerned about dry weather, especially over the western Corn Belt. We need some sustained rainfall now that we're getting into this hot time of year. Now, later in the summer, we get these regional or mesoscale convection complexes. We don't really get those this time of year, as much anyway. But we do get that summertime 30% afternoon and evening storms, and over 2 or 3 days, a week, we usually get some rain out of that. And I have not seen that pattern develop so far over most areas. Now, over the last week here, you can see it was a fairly quiet week over the Midwest. The exception was Indiana and Ohio, where there was some modest precipitation, anywhere from ½ inch to some areas over 2 inches were the estimates. Wisconsin, some rainfall, lighter amounts, but most areas quite dry. Parts of Nebraska, which needed rain, eastern Nebraska, not much. Dakota's still not much precipitation. There was a little bit. And Iowa, which also could use some precipitation, you can see not much at all last week. So overall, a pretty quiet week across most of the Corn Belt. Now, the story for temperatures, I mentioned this over the last couple of weeks, is this dominant pattern of heat over the western U.S. and then that dip in the jet stream over the eastern U.S. Now, the eastern Corn Belt is going to be affected more by that dip in the jet stream. The west will be affected more by the bulging north of that jet stream. Now, before we get into the forecast, let's look at soil moisture here. There are lots of ways I can show this, but generally I think this is one that sort of tells the story where we have the greatest need for additional precipitation, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. Then we're also getting some emerging dryness here and there. Parts of Iowa and Illinois could still use some more rain. But then as we get into the eastern Corn Belt and Wisconsin, it looks a lot better. And then with more rain this week, that's going to continue. So we really have this western, which is dry and hot, eastern, more moderate temperatures, and generally adequate precipitation. Now the tropics, I'll keep an eye on that because tropical moisture can have an impact on our soil moisture. Nothing at all. Look how quiet the tropics are. The Gulf of Mexico, very much clear skies and not much cloud activity, so it looks pretty clear and not much expected. So here's the jet stream this week, and what we have is we have this ridge of high pressure, and what you're going to see is you're going to see this not move all that much as we go through July. It's a very persistent pattern, unusually persistent, but when we push this jet stream to the north here, it buckles to the east. So we're going to be seeing hot conditions here and more modest conditions to the east, and that's what you can see for the first 5 days. Hot temperatures in the west, so where it's been hot and dry, North Dakota, South Dakota, most of Nebraska into Kansas, it's going to continue to be hot and mainly dry. Anywhere east of the Mississippi River, generally near normal temperatures. Now here's the precipitation outlook for the week. Unfortunately, areas that really need the rain, right in this area here, the western Corn Belt, looks like it's going to be very dry, and then you bring that heat in here, it's going to even dry out soils worse than they are. The area that looks like it's going to get some rain, we could use some more in Iowa here, but it looks like most of it's going to start right along the Mississippi River and then brush northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and northern Ohio. Could be several inches of rain in those areas. Now we get into the July 13th through 18th period. Look at that high pressure. If anything, it only intensifies over that region. And now we're looking at temperature anomalies 10 to 15 degrees above normal over the Great Plains. That pushes again, look at that, not much change at all, right in the same area. So right through the next week and a half, right in this region here, very hot. But then again, east of the Mississippi River, temperature is fairly close to normal. Now here's a count out of the next 10 days of the number of days above 90 degrees, and that red is almost every day. So you can see here that we're getting most of the days above 90 degrees right through the middle part of the nation. Now let's look out a little bit further out. This is further out into July. I don't have that marked right, but this is into the 11 to 15 days out, and hardly any change in this pattern. So what you see here is very little change in the temperature. So it's pretty amazing to see how little this is going to change over the next 15 days. So we're really going to have, if you're having more modest temperatures, I think you're going to stay like that, and these warm temperatures, unusually hot, are going to continue unusually hot. Now, over parts of Nebraska, North and South Dakota, parts of Kansas, we're looking at 2 weeks of mainly dry and unusually hot weather. So it's not looking good. So here's week 1, your precipitation anomalies. This is a little bit different than the rainfall I showed you. This model is now pushing it a little bit further north, that band, where the forecast had it further down here. So that just shows that uncertainty in models. But everywhere else you see a strong yellow. Week 2, this is a summertime pattern. I wouldn't get too excited with this right now. Really, it's sort of a equal chances one way or the other. It's not a real strong dry signal, but it's not a real strong wet signal. So when we look at the soil moisture change here, with the exception of that one pattern of rain right through here, and that's sort of not all that certain where it'll be, but right now, right in here, everywhere else looks like drying soils over the next 10 days. Wanted to look out a little bit further into week 3, and just to give you, when is this pattern going to change? Here's week 3, and I don't see much change at all. So that's what I'm saying. This is surprisingly persistent. And when you get these persistent patterns, this is where your impacts start to intensify. So we're looking at over the Intermountain region, parts of the western U.S., and parts of the north central U.S., weeks of this hot and dry weather. And matter of fact, here's the outlook for weeks 3 and 4. Temperature on the left, precipitation on the right. So basically, we're looking at high heat over the western Corn Belt, more moderate temperatures over the eastern Corn Belt. The best chance for rain is going to be over parts of the eastern Corn Belt from Illinois over across Indiana into Ohio. Looks like dry and hot conditions in the west, and overall a pattern that looks like it's going to continue pretty much unchanged right through the rest of the month of July. So that's our weather briefing for the week. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'd be glad to answer them. Hope this helped you in your planning, not just for this week, but for the next couple weeks. Take care.